Hello, everyone. It's Hannah Law here with my final project for the American Christian Heritage. For my final project, I decided to do a project on Billy Graham. Um, Also, I wanted to say that it's very hot here in West Virginia, so most rooms in my house have fans or air conditioning running, and this is the coolest place, so sorry for any noises or the lighting being a little bit off. So, um, starting off, Billy Graham was born on November 7th, 1918. His full name is William Franklin Graham Jr. He was born near Charlotte, North Carolina, and he is the eldest of four children. He was born to Morrow and William Graham, and he has two younger sisters and a brother. He was raised in a Presbyterian church, which I think that this is important to remember because he was an ordained Southern Baptist minister. And it was so it was kind of ironic that he ended up being ordained in something different than what he had grown up. But he was from Scottish and Irish descent, which may have also played a role in his religion as well as a child. He was a very active kid, which I think kind of explains a lot of times, ministers are very active in their preaching, and it probably helped him a lot in stuff that he would end up doing through all of his crusades and preachings and teachings. He's a student at Sharon Grammar School, where he really enjoyed reading books. One of his favorite books was Tarzan. He liked books similar to that, geared towards male and of the male role. He graduated from Sharon High School in 1936. After he graduated, he attended many different colleges, one of them being Bob Jones College, which is now Bob Jones University, a very, very large Christian university in South Carolina, so kind of close to where he was born, where he grew up. He then went to Florida Bible Institute, which is now the Trinity College of Florida. He was there for a little bit before he finally transferred to his final college, Wheaton College in Illinois, where he would get his degree from. While there, he met his future wife, Ruth Bell, and they married on August 13th, 1943. Her parents were Presbyterian missionaries to China, and they were married for 64 years before Ruth passed away in 2007. Together they had 5 children: Virginia, Anne, Ruth, Franklin, and Nelson. And of those 5 children, they had 19 grandchildren. Probably the most famous grandchild that you've heard of, if you're familiar at all with any of Billy Graham or any controversies that have happened recently, but their grandson, Cheekvidgen, in 2015, was the head preacher of a church, senior pastor, and he stepped down after admitting to an extramarital affair. Starting off in Billy Graham's career, he started off as a preacher at the United Gospel Tabernacle, where he was a pastor for a couple years before he went on to be the pastor of the First Baptist Church in Western Springs, very close to where he went to school in Wheaton. While he was at this church, a friend of his, Tori Johnson, came to him and asked him about taking over a radio show called Songs in the Night, a radio show that was really suffering financially and just did not have a lot of support. Billy Graham, through the financial support and the help of his church, would take it over, where it became a very popular radio show. It would go on for many years, but Graham left it in 1947 when he became the president of Northwestern Bible College in Minneapolis. He was only 30 years old in 1947, making him the youngest sitting president of any university or college at the time. Which I think that's just really, really crazy that he, at 30 years old, was a president of a university or college. Nowadays, many 30-year-olds are still pursuing their degree, let alone being president of an entire college. He was there for about 3 years, and in 1950 he left that endeavor to go on to the next one of being a chaplain. He was unable to do that for long because he had contracted mumps, and so his career as a chaplain, like I said, did not last very long. But he became involved in the Youth for Christ, where he traveled around the United States and Europe. So this is a different age group than maybe what he'd been used to. In a congregation, you deal with adults. At the university, he dealt with young adults, middle-aged adults. And then with the Youth for Christ, he dealt with children and teens, hoping to lead them to Christ. That brings us to probably what is Billy Graham, one of the things he's very well known for, his crusades. He has done over 400 crusades in 185 countries, spanning over 6 continents. And of that, he's led hundreds of thousands of people to Christ, helped tons of people to kind of reevaluate their lives, lead them back to the spiritual way. His first crusade was in 1947, around the time of his being president of the college, where 6,000 people were in attendance to this first crusade. There's also a crusade in Moscow, I believe, where 155,000 people attended, and a quarter of those people came to the altar call, came to accept Christ or to get things right in their lives. Speaking of the altar call, a song that he used a lot was "Just As I Am," was the song he used mostly for his altar calls. He also was involved with student ministries, very much similar to Youth for Christ, but this dealt with students specifically in different schools in different areas. And in 1950, he started the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, which would go on. His children have a lot, specifically his sons have a lot to do with, and it would publish many works and many other things, help out with many other things. He was preaching during the time of civil rights, and I think this is one of the things that I kind of didn't really think about when I thought about Billy Graham, because he's still living today, and I guess it just was, I don't know, I just didn't think about it, but he was alive and was preaching during the civil rights, and at one of his revivals, they had barriers set up, one for the whites and one for the blacks. He went through and took down the barriers and told the ushers that if they put him back up, or if they did not take him down and they did not let people sit wherever, that he wasn't going to preach that specific revival. So he is very much in favor of not having segregation, and it kind of probably played an important role in churches. A lot of churches were probably at the time still segregated. Sad as it is to say, I'm sure there were many. And hopefully through this, he was able to help them. He is actually a part of the Democratic Party, and for many of the presidential elections has been in support of the Democratic Party. 2 very famous elections, though, where he was not, and he was in support of the Republican candidate, was when Richard Nixon was running. And he would have a controversy with the Jews and Richard Nixon as well. And also, the most recent election before now, the 2012 election, where he actually endorsed Mitt Romney. He, like I said, had some controversies that surrounded him. One of them had to do with Jews and Richard Nixon, the Vietnam War, which in and of itself is a huge controversy during that time. And the views on women. He believed that women should be wives and homemakers, and their job was in the kitchen and taking care of the man. A lot of people at this time of women's rights and women's suffrage was very appalled by what he said, therefore causing a lot of controversy. This is usually the time in videos or reports where you would talk about the person and their death and their last bit of their life. We don't have to talk about that because Billy Graham is still alive to this day. He was born in 1918 and he is still alive. I think that is utterly amazing. He's lived a very rich life. He's accomplished a lot. And in his life right now, he's currently dealing with Parkinson's disease, among, I'm sure, many other health problems, but that is one of the biggest ones he's been dealing with for quite many years. But through Billy Graham, we can see that even though there are controversies, and even though people don't agree with you, you can still lead people to Christ. Go you into all the world and preach the gospel. Go into all the nations, all the lands, teaching the gospel. Billy Graham went to 185 countries. He went to all of the continents where people inhabit. He went to 400 crusades and went all around the United States preaching the gospel of Christ to lead people to Christ. Through him, we can see somebody who was a missionary in a way. He was a minister and a missionary. There are things that people are not going to agree with Billy Graham. There are things in his teachings that a lot of people probably do not agree with. There are things that he did, things his family did. We talked about his grandson. But through it all, Graham still led people to Christ. He still made a difference in people's lives. And I think that's why I picked him, is because he had impacted so many people. And it just goes to show that you can start out as a normal person and you can change the world. So this is to all of you that are watching this, to go out and to spread the gospel in your area of the world, the country, wherever you may be. So thank you, and everybody have a great rest of the semester, and good luck in all that you do.